So why blockchain? Companies don't realize how many transactions involve multiple parties. There are inefficiencies in payments, lack of transparency between parties, lost goods, and human error. There are lots of things. In a traditional linear transaction model, there's lots of inefficiencies of action, doing billing, doing sales, getting your shipping and receiving records, all of that, your food safety records out to everybody. You've got to individually manage all of those relationships. If you remember that original one with the producer and the consumer and the retailer and all those lines between all of those different things in the system, that's a very simplistic look. It doesn't even talk about finance and billing and other departments within those. And you've got to make those communications. There's lots of communications to make. Blockchain can handle a lot of that for you. You make a transaction, and if blockchain is set up, you don't have to worry about sending the bill to your customer and sending the information to your finance, etc. Everybody who needs to be part of this database access, it's all there. And then you set up your databases to automatically do what you need to do. All right, there was a transaction, you send a bill. There was a transaction, the same transaction, you send information to your accounts receivable folks, you send a notice to your finance folks. Everything gets done without having all of this duplication or inefficiencies of payments. You also make more information more readily available to interested parties. Lots of advantages. Blockchain enables multiple parties to record their inputs, increasing accountability, real-time accuracy, security, and transparency while streamlining business processes. Again, don't get bogged down into this, but I do want you to think about how these transactions might make more efficient business operations. So IBM is a major computer company that focuses on business, and they are making blockchain real for business with diverse engagements delivered across industries. Big mouthful. What does it mean? There's a lot of stuff going on. So you can see down here, food safety in the agricultural world. Here's where I want you to focus. Things like Dole, Driscoll's, McCormick, Walmart, Unilever. Oh, Kroger. I did see Kroger. So some of these you may recognize, some you may not, but Dole and Driscoll's are huge around here. Unilever is the international equivalent or the European equivalent of our own Procter and Gamble, which sells damn near everything imaginable in our consumer goods section. I mean, you buy shampoo, you buy Q-tips, you buy toilet paper, it's probably owned by Procter and Gamble if it's made in the United States, or at least it's owned in the United States. That's Procter and Gamble, but Unilever is their equivalent. This is not everybody in the process, but it certainly is some of the heavy hitters in the blockchain movement within food safety. Blockchain transaction mapping, key area of interest for anti-counterfeiting of materials. If you have blockchain, now this isn't the food safety aspect, but blockchain allows you to have very good records of production and sales. So how is somebody going to have some knockoff purses from your company and be able to convince somebody these are legitimate purses or watches or CDs or movies or whatever? Any of these counterfeited items, it gets much harder to show any records of how you purchased these items. Now, this would be fraudulent records, obviously, because they're counterfeit items. And right now, it's easy to show an invoice. Yeah, I bought these. With blockchain, counterfeiting the records or making fraudulent records of purchases for counterfeit material to make them seem legitimate is virtually impossible if the customer or the law enforcement authorities just check the transactions on the blockchain. Now, that's not necessarily going to help. You're buying a counterfeit DVD from a street vendor, but certainly law enforcement would be able to use that. Elimination of counterfeit costs and risks of false liability for material manufacturers. Don't worry about that. Assurance of quality and the ability to get material information digitally. A huge benefit to design throughout manufacturing. Appearing first in pharmacy supply chains where there is a huge problem with fake drugs coming from suspicious sources. So here's a great example where the blockchain makes it much more difficult to make counterfeit drugs appear legitimate. There's a huge problem in the pharmacy world with counterfeit medications. Blockchain can certainly help with that. Blockchain protocols, public blockchains such as Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin isn't the only one, but certainly has pretty much squashed the competition. Permissioned blockchains where you have members or participants in the blockchain, and private blockchains. So you can set up blockchains for whatever level of from full private to full public, whatever you need. Now, don't worry about the numbers here if you're interested. These are not that old. So you get an idea of how much information moves. Now, 20,000 terabytes, petabytes. There is megabytes, which is 1 million, gigabytes, which is 1 billion, terabytes, which is 1 trillion, and petabytes, which is 1,000 trillion bytes. 1,000 trillion. These are numbers that are just unfathomable. Big data, Amazon and their data analytics. Amazon has filed a patent for a shipping system designed to cut delivery times by predicting what buyers are going to buy before they buy it, and shipping products in their general direction or even right to their door before the sales click. Interesting. Now, I don't know what's going on with that patent. You can certainly investigate where we are on that. But yeah, Amazon's trying to do predictive sales so that it's near you already before you even think of buying it. Big data supply chain, customer analytics from the company Dash. Amazon launched an in-home button to replenish product at the point of use. Based on Wi-Fi capabilities in the home, you can set the buttons via Amazon's mobile shopping app and assign specific products and amounts you want from each click. You just click a button. It can be in an app, it can be on a consumer device, it can be anything. essentially, if you've got Wi-Fi in your home, you just push a button and boom, you get more laundry detergent or more milk or more toilet paper, and it will be there tomorrow, today, depends on what your setup is. So there are lots of sectors, consumer products we've talked about, manufacturing. In food, we've mentioned a little bit about that, technology, media, telecommunications, healthcare, like the pharmaceuticals, life sciences. These are major industry sectors that have adopted some level, some important utilization of the blockchain model. 39% of the senior executives at large US companies initially surveyed indicate that they have little or no knowledge about blockchain technology. I bet that's changed by now. I would think over the last 3-4 years, that has started to change dramatically. Now, there's a big difference between, yeah, I've heard of blockchain, yeah, I know about Bitcoin, versus knowledge about the technology. That's a whole different level. And I'm sure there's still lots of executives that really don't have knowledge of the technology, even at a level that is being presented, this introductory overview that is being presented here in this PowerPoint. Many deemed it to be crucial for their companies and industries. 42% believe it will disrupt their industry. Now, disrupt could be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on your perspective. A disruption of an industry can be opportunities for some companies, and it could be negative for other companies. So, identity management, I'm not going to get into this. You don't need to know about this from the standpoint of this class, but in terms of data protection, identity management, you can use special things called private keys that are part of the blockchain, something that's been around for decades, many decades, the whole private key concept, which is one of the fundamental aspects of how blockchain works. One of the major pieces has been around for a long, long, long time. You might look up something called PGP, or Pretty Good Privacy. And that's a very modest name for something that is just phenomenally secure, and you can use it to make secure emails with another person. They share a public key, but can only unlock it with a private key. Won't even get into how it works, but it's a great way to trade information with somebody without losing security. Again, some other examples: distributed access management. How does blockchain work instead of this? What is it? There's a term about the confusion, and I'm drawing a blank at the moment, doesn't matter. But essentially, the more nodes you have, the more confusion in the system. And so the more complicated your industry, your transaction, your records, the things you have to do, the more nodes you add, the more communication links you have, the more confusing, problematic, and difficult it gets. With blockchain, you essentially have one database that is accessible, and only the parts that are appropriate for each piece of this user chain, each of these node areas, they can only access their part. And whenever any transaction actually occurs, it's just another link in the chain. You go click and you buy some Bitcoin, boom, another link in the chain, another block of data, another piece of data is stuck into the database. And it's all, so this represents the database, the chain. I think these are good reminders of some of the things that I said earlier. I'm not going to read through them, but if you want to look at how blockchain enables interoperability, go ahead and read further. Yeah, feel free to pause on some of this. Vertical integration in the food chain. I do want to stop on this one. Farmers, suppliers, so the seed suppliers, the fertilizer suppliers, irrigation business. It could be pallets and pesticides and rubber bands, whatever you need, your suppliers. And then the farmers themselves. It could be direct farmers, associations or cooperatives, but groups of farmers. Then it goes to the food processing companies, packaging companies. It goes to the distribution network and retail stores. So everything from grocery stores, traders, wholesalers, distributors, exporters, all kinds of businesses involved in the distribution chain. And finally gets to the consumer. So this is a linear flow, or a roughly linear flow of the food manufacturing or food production system, but there are lots of companies that are looking to vertically integrate or combine these into fewer entities, where they combine different pieces of this chain. I don't want to use the word chain because I don't mean blockchain, but in this chain of events. So what does blockchain allow? Traceability. The consumer can trace back, or a food safety specialist who's investigating a food safety outbreak can trace from the consumer all the way back to even the suppliers who supplied the compost that went onto the field in which that was grown. So even before the farmer, to the inputs that the farmer purchased. Blockchain will fundamentally change business processes. You can access any information about what is in the food and its origins from the farm to the table in seconds. You can better prevent counterfeiting issues around goods such as pharmaceuticals, luxury goods, electronics, and diamonds. And even in the food industry, there is some counterfeiting of wines, counterfeiting of higher end labeled products, putting generic foodstuffs in a container that is branded. And it generally doesn't happen at the low end. It's rare at the extreme high end because people purchasing at the extreme high end of the most expensive wines and caviar, they're probably not going to get fooled too easily. They have, it's a too small of a market, too risky, but it's in that intermediate area. You're basically giving a $7 wine inside of a $40 bottle. A lot of business, a lot of money to be made in that kind of counterfeiting. Anyway, enough on that slide. Why is food supply chain provenance critical today? Pause and read if you'd like. I'm not going to quiz you on this particular slide. Here's just a slide that we can talk about. E. coli and the spinach recall. This was the 2006 spinach outbreak, and something like blockchain can make it so much more efficient, so much easier to mine the data and try to link all this together and figure out what's going on much faster than with traditional systems. We still have the basic traceback. We still use either barcodes or QR codes or RFID, radio frequency identification tags, or something else. Those are the individual things on an individual step in the process. But where does the information go? Where is it being stored? When you click on that little gun reading the QR code on the side of a pallet of material, that little click causes a recording of something that, oh, this pallet is being loaded onto this truck. Where did that record go saying this pallet is going onto this truck? With more and more probability, it's going into a blockchain. It's going into one of these databases that we're talking about, these chain databases of blocks of data. Peanuts, this was 2008. I believe this 2008 incident was the only time I'm aware of where a food safety recall became a criminal matter and somebody actually went to jail. Could have been a different peanut one, but I'm pretty sure it was this particular event. So here you have a global food supply. So here is a fancy dessert being served at a restaurant. The cocoa powder came from Switzerland. The espresso beans came from Colombia. The mascarpone cheese and ladyfingers came out of Italy, etc. All of these things you can find out very, very quickly if you have access to the blockchain information for this food item. So food safety provenance, providing consumers, suppliers, manufacturers, carriers, retailers, and regulators with greater transparency on their goods. So there's food safety transparency in terms of all of the food safety things that you're doing at a level that isn't going to reveal proprietary information. But essentially, you are improving your track and trace capabilities, or traceback as it's generally considered in the industry. The traceback systems are more robust and faster under a blockchain model. Enhanced food flow, lower compliance costs. Definitely some benefits to using blockchain in the food safety world. Walmart's compelling business issue, China. More than 3/4 of the Chinese citizens surveyed believe that food safety is one of the most important quality of life indicators. 95% of the 133,000 participants have encountered food safety problems. 50% expressed worries about China's food safety. More than 60% did not have enough confidence in government's new actions against food safety issues. So again, this is something that Walmart, which is a player in every country in the world, to my knowledge, I don't think they miss one of them. But Walmart in China, this is a big deal. If they can come in and provide consumer confidence through their blockchain system, that's a win. Walmart and IBM are working on two pilots around food traceability and transparency. And so this is really important. Walmart and IBM, the largest retailer on earth and the largest business computer service provider on earth, are getting together looking at these traceability and transparency models using two very different kinds of food products, mangoes and pork. Now, I don't ask you to remember a lot of detail, but remember, mangoes and pork, Walmart and IBM. These are two of the pilot programs that really have exploded even further use of food safety processes under the blockchain model. Walmart and IBM are envisioning a fully transparent 21st century organized food system. So again, they're trying to create everything, not just mangoes and pork, but everything falls under this model. In case of a food safety issue, how to do traceability in minutes, seconds instead of weeks. Blockchain rather, is a tool that can do that. So the life of a mango from tree to shelf, 5 to 8 years for the tree to mature. Then the mangoes are grown in South or Central America, shipped to a packing house, shipped to the US or some other country, washed, peeled, and sliced, shipped to Walmart, and transported to the store, refrigerated, and put on shelves, and then it goes to the consumer. All of this can be readily available to any interested party that the blockchain is available. In a nutshell, blockchain can be a game changer, saving time, removing costs, reducing risks, increases trust, while burning a lot of electricity on thousands or tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of computers around the world. They don't bother to mention that part. Walmart's expectations: improve shelf life management, increase monetization. In other words, able to make more money. Anyway, you can read this. FSMA is the Food Safety Modernization Act. FSIS, I can't remember what that stands for. HACCP is the Hazard Analysis Critical Control Points, but essentially it is government regulations related to food safety. Traceability, fraud, and provenance transparency, redundant and incomplete data, high friction enterprise integration. So again, read these if you wish, but I think I've already covered that enough. Criticism, I'm not going to talk about everyone, but uncertain regulatory status. This one little line right here that I've mentioned several times: large energy consumption. It is huge. Cultural adoption, cultural adoption. Will people in companies, will people buy into this blockchain concept? And I would argue that it's already happening enough that people are buying into it, but we don't know where it's going to go in the future. If it's going to become the end all be all, everything in food is in blockchain, period. That is where some visionaries see it going, but right now it is in models, in test products, in pieces of the industry. Bits and pieces have been bitten off and are in testing, and I would say it's maybe beyond testing and beyond pilot. It's just not encompassing everything. So I'm not going to talk about that anymore. Where are we on the IBM food industry journey? So back here, just a few years, we had Walmart with its pork traceability and mango traceability. In the 2017 range, additional partners that I've already shown you this have joined in. 2018 onboarding of agriculture ingredient suppliers, retailers, and others in the chain. So there's a lot that has happened in recent years. And since this slide has been made, it has increased even more. Let's take another quick